We all pray and hope that first-time guests will visit our church because that means we are reaching more people for Jesus in our communities. But how do we do that in ways that don't feel awkward? Well, today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to give you 7 non-intrusive ways to welcome first-time guests.
Welcome back to Practical Church Planting, where in 15 minutes or less, we'll give you practical tips, advice, and encouragement to help you plant and grow healthy churches. My name is Brian Adrosian. Joining me is Dylan Dodson. And today we're talking about 7 non-intrusive ways to welcome first-time guests.
That's good, because nobody wants to be welcomed intrusively.
That's right. No one wants to be intrusive.
And the prayer for all of us, obviously, is to have new people, hopefully every Sunday. Mm-hmm. So how can we welcome them in a way that feels welcoming and not awkward for them?
Yeah.
So here we go. 7 ways. Here's number 1, and we talk about this a lot.
About every episode.
So please, hopefully by now you've heard this and try and implement it.
Yes.
Having people in your parking lot. Having people serve or volunteer in your parking lot. We don't need anyone to tell us where to park. That's not the point. The point is not telling people where to park, especially in a smaller or a newer church. The point is that we expect people to be new. We want to start from the parking lot welcoming people. If somebody is confused about where to go, again, having a sign is great, but having actually someone tell you where to go. We've all been places where we're like, well, the sign says go this way, and I'm still kind of nervous. But as soon as you see somebody who says, no, you're in the right place, you feel better.
Yep. And
so having people in the parking lot says, we expect new guests to be here. No, they don't need our help parking them, but they know they're in the right place. They're going to be warmly greeted from the moment they get into the parking lot, not till they get inside.
Yeah.
Having people in the parking lot says, we expect you to be here, and so we planned and prepared for you to be here. That's why we have people in the parking lot.
And you know what? Churches all do parking differently. And so if someone's been to a church before, it's good to have someone out there. Some churches, they have designated areas for first-time parkers, designated areas for people with kids, all these different places. Maybe if you've been here a while, you're supposed to park in the very back, and all these things to where if someone's been to a church before and they're pulling in to your church for the first time, you might think who would have any problem parking here? It's a parking lot, just park. But they might have no idea what to expect. And it could be any number of things that could happen in that parking lot.
And so don't even and it's not just having someone in the parking lot, give them a vest.
Yeah.
Because I was somewhere recently, I don't think they were a parking lot person, but I couldn't tell because they had like a small lanyard on and I was looking for it.
Yeah.
And so, but if you're new, you have no idea and you're like, what does that person do? Have someone with a vest that's easy to recognize, easy to see, that says, we expected you to come, you're in the right place. Mm-hmm. Come over here.
Yeah. Make it clear. Give them a Mickey Mouse hand, give them a wand or something. Make it so that they know. And it lets them know that someone is in this parking lot. Because maybe it's rainy and everyone's inside. It lets them know that, hey, there's humans here.
Right. They're in the right place. It's a super simple and a very non-intrusive way to say, we expect new people to be here.
Yep.
That's why we have people in the parking lot. Number 2, acknowledge that they are present from stage every week. And this is not raise your hand if it's your first time. Do not do that, ever.
I missed that.
Please do not do that. But say things like, hey, if you're new with us, thanks for choosing to be with here. You could be here, you could be anywhere Sunday. Thanks for being with us. If you're, just literally saying, if you're new here today, thanks for being with us is a way to acknowledge, oh, I'm not the only new person, because it does not matter how small or big your church is. Every new person, especially if they have no experience with church, feels like they are the only one that's new for the first time.
Right.
You could have you could be 1,000-person church, and people will feel like they're the only one that's new. And so by you saying, "Hey, if you're new, thanks for being here," just acknowledging that there are new people in your presence, even if there's not, you still have to do this every week because you want to train your people to know if I invite someone, they'll be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Saying that, acknowledging, thank you for being here, says, oh, the new people do come to this thing. They actually thought about me.
And that's what I was going to say is do it even if there's no new people there. You might have a congregation of 20, 30, 50 people, and none of these people are new. They've all been here for a year. But and it'll feel awkward. Like it can feel awkward saying it, but I guarantee you're the only one that feels awkward. Your people do not feel awkward that you're saying it. No one's looking around saying like, where's the new person? You feel awkward, and that's speaking on stage. That's what it is. So just deal with it.
Right, because not everyone even comes every week.
Yeah.
And and even if you're smaller and you're newer and you know for a fact that everyone knows nobody cares.
No.
They're thinking, oh, okay, that's good. So if I have, they acknowledge new people. So it's good for the new person and for your people that are there. Just acknowledge that they are present from stage, and it'll put them at ease to know, oh, they actually do expect me to be here, because they could be, you sing and you preach and maybe you have communion. Like there's a lot of things that everyone just seems to know what to do.
Yeah.
And when you actually acknowledge, hey, we know there's some people that don't, it puts them at ease.
Yeah.
So acknowledge it from stage. Number 3, have a connect core Connect cord.
Connect cord.
You don't have a Connect cord. That would be weird. A Connect card or some equivalent. And most churches have this. And this is the same idea. Now, again, this is why you want to say it every single week. Say, hey, if you're new, and we switched recently from saying if it's your first time to if you are new, because a lot of people don't fill it out on their first time.
Yeah,
because it's just awkward. And so if you say just if it's your first time, it's a little trick that we've learned that you might not ever get it filled out. Now we have people fill out cards that it's their second or third time. Like just this week, it's a couple that you met. It was their second time, but they filled it out. I think because we started saying if you're new.
Yeah.
And
sense.
So we have a Connect card, and again, there's no pressure. Again, we don't say raise your hand and we'll pick it up from you. We just say, hey, there's a Connect card in the seat back in front of you, or however you get it into their hands. And if you're comfortable, fill it out and bring it to the Connect table after the service. But again, it just shows people, they do expect new people to come because they actually have something for new people to fill out if they want to.
Yeah. I mean, everyone knows that you need to use a Connect card, and maybe one day we can do an episode on like how to make an effective Connect card. I don't know. Maybe.
That's so good, Brian.
Episode 100. Who knows? But yeah, it's hugely important. People want to know where they can get more information, and they don't want to be given a chore of like go to a website or something like that. Or I know some churches do it that way. I don't. Difference of opinion, whatever. But having something in their hand that they can take somewhere and have human contact and hand it to somebody and actually be greeted and meet somebody, I think really helps them. Not just makes it feel less awkward, but it helps them really connect with somebody to where when they leave, they have a connection with someone that isn't just the pastor.
Right. And again, this is what we talked about before. There's been times, especially when we're newer, but it still probably happens every once in a while now, that there will be not a single new person listening, but nobody knows that. And so you still go through the whole routine every single week so that people can know. And then, as we were saying before we did this, as a added bonus to this, if you have a gift that they can trade it for, that is more likely for them to fill it out, which is helpful as well.
And like you said, I don't know if I should say most, but I feel like a lot of people, like you said, don't fill it out on their first time.
Right.
So by still going through the whole routine, we go through it in our announcements or our next steps of explaining what it is and why to fill it out. If we didn't do that, if we looked out and saw no new people that were there, and because of that we didn't do that, then just this past week, we would have had people that wouldn't have filled it out and wouldn't have actually taken that next step and connected more with the church because we didn't go that extra step in doing it.
Exactly. And, just a side tip when it comes to gifts, there's lots of different gifts that churches have done. We've done a few in our time. There is nothing like a Chick-fil-A gift card.
That's right.
Even if it's only $5, if you have a Chick-fil-A gift card near you, that has we should probably do some research. I don't know the percentage, but it has exponentially increased our Chick-fil-A or our Connect card. And so have a Connect card.
And if you're in the north like I was from and you don't have Chick-fil-A, then you're just less effective. I don't know.
But they're super effective if you have one near you. So number 3, have a Connect card. Don't make it awkward. Don't force people to fill it out, but at least says it's there. Yeah. Mention it so that they know that you expect new people. Number 4, we've done an episode on this one as well. I'm not sure which number.
Pretty early.
But give a tour of your space. We've been doing this I don't know how long now. And again, the size of your space helps for this. We tell them it'll take 5 minutes or less. We do this at the end of our service. At the end of our service, after we don't do announcements or next steps at the end of the service, but the things we'll say is I'll come up or our host will come up. So thanks for them for being there. Again, mention if you're new, we'd love to connect with you. Head out to the Connect table. And we literally say, get a Chick-fil-A gift card. And we're also going to be, Brian or whoever it is going to be at the Connect table with a captain's hat on because people don't know who people are if they're new. Yep. We would love to give you a tour of the space. It'll take about 5 minutes. Oftentimes it takes longer because of them, not because of us, because people have questions. And we just walk them around our space really briefly. And so giving a tour is an easy way to let new people know, hey, if you want more information, here's a way to do it. And the nice thing, and we talked about on the tour episode, the nice thing about this, if nobody does it, it's not awkward. So you just have someone standing at the Connect table. They don't go on a tour. No big deal. If you have hey, let's go meet in this service, in this room after service, and you're a smaller church, it could be kind of awkward if one person's there. Yeah. The tour, there could be one person on it. There could be 7 people on it, and it's not awkward. Yeah. So again, at the end of our service, we just say, hey, so-and-so is going to be at the Connect table with a captain's hat on. They'll be super easy to find. Love to give you a quick tour of our space. We don't always give tours, but it says, hey, we expect new people to be here and have questions, and if they're interested, we want to show you around. Yeah, and the good thing about this is it gives you an opportunity, if you're the one giving the tour, to give more information about the church and kind of show them more things without having, you want to make sure you're not overloading them with information and just dumping a bunch of stuff on them. But we've had tours where we've had over a dozen people go on it, a dozen plus, and we've had weeks where we didn't give one, or we give one to 1 or 2 people. Yep. And either way, it gives them an opportunity to kind of feel more comfortable to ask questions. For example, this past Sunday, I gave this couple a tour,
And we have a team leaving for Guatemala next week when we're recording this next week. And so I just kind of mentioned it because we had a little thing set up for that. And she was super interested in that and asked a ton of questions about Guatemala. And it's not something that we mentioned from stage, but we didn't really have time to talk about a lot. And she wouldn't have an opportunity to talk about it with anybody else, but it was something she was really interested in because we went on a tour. We kind of found that interest, and it really, I think, helped her make a connection with the church and with, I mean, it happened to be me, but with the person giving the tour.
Right.
Because it was something that she was interested in.
That's a good way to let people know that we expect new people.
Yeah.
Is to have tours set up, and they're not awkward if no one takes them.
Nope. Give that to her.
Number 5, do not ask if this is their first time. Doesn't matter how small you are. Now, we as a staff and most of our key leaders don't do this. We still have some people that do it from time to time, and that happens. But you can say, hey, how did you hear about us? Or even, hey, are you new with us? But I personally would never ask.
Yep.
Unless you know for it, without a doubt, or someone introduces you and you know it's their first time. But again, how did you hear about us is safer. But just don't say, is it your first time? Because if it's not, people feel awkward. And also, too, like sometimes our people will ask other people, because we have 2 services, and they'll be like, hey, is it your first time? And they've been coming for like 3 months.
Right.
Because nobody comes every month. And then it makes the person that was asked feel bad or feel awkward. And so this is not a long point, but just don't ask if it's their first time. It would be kind of obvious, or you can say if they're new with us, but try to avoid that question.
Yep. My go-to is always, if I see someone I don't know, I go up and put my hand out, shake their hand, and just say, hey, my name's Brian. I don't think we've met before.
There you go.
And if it's their first time, 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, yeah, it's my first time.
Right.
Perfect. And then we can go on. And if they don't, then maybe I just haven't met them before. I mean, I'm on staff. I see most people, but there's a chance I haven't. I mean, I serve with kids sometimes. Right. You know, people can be here. So there are people that I thought were new, but bit my tongue and didn't say that. And then turns out they've actually been here a couple weeks. We just haven't crossed paths.
And again, I would say it's better not to ask, even though it was the first time, because I've just seen a lot of people get hurt by it.
Yeah,
so introduce yourself, say your name, say I haven't met. That's a great thing. Oftentimes they'll identify themselves if they're new or if they want to be found out that they're new.
Right.
So don't ask. Number 6, signage. As best as you can.
It's a big one.
You have to have signs that tell people where things are, because not everybody wants to talk to somebody. Now, in our previous episode, we talked about the importance of a lobby greeter, which is important, but sometimes people don't want to talk to anybody.
Yep.
So having as many signs as possible, if your parking lot like ours isn't like super easy from the road, like unless you literally pull in and your church is right there, you need to have arrow signs. Like my goal is this, that a church should be like an airport in the sense that there are signs, if people are actually observant, which not everyone is, which is why we need people everywhere, that they could from any point know where they're supposed to go. And so we have signage telling people where to go. People don't always look, so we have people. But trying to tell people, if they don't want to talk to anybody, if they could do a quick scan and find out where they're supposed to go, I think that's really important, because it shows that you expect not everybody to know where everything is.
Yeah, this is a big one for me. I think back to a couple of years ago before I was in ministry, when we'd visit a church or go to a church, and I'm naturally an introvert. I don't really like to, and I don't mind it now, but especially when I was younger, I didn't like to walk up and talk to people. And especially if you grew up in the church, if church people are notorious for not shutting up, like for just talking your ear off. And so if I'm visiting somewhere new and I don't know my way around, the last thing I want to do is walk up to someone who I don't have any connection with, don't know at all, and ask them this question, because I know they're going to try and get me to sign up for something, or I know they're going to try and do all these things. And so not having signage to someone who was like me, which is pretty normal, and not being able to know their way around makes them feel super awkward, and is a recipe to make them not want to come back.
And even, I wouldn't even say it's an introverted thing. If you're new and you're nervous in any way, and you just want to get in and get out, having signs is probably the most non-intrusive thing that you could do.
Very true.
Number 6, have signage. And then number 7, we've talked about this before, but in the preaching. So really anything from stage as well, like not naming people that go to the church without a qualifier. We all know Jim. Like, no, we don't all know Jim. And now I feel like if I don't know Jim, there's something wrong with me. So anytime you mention someone from stage, you always give a qualifier. You know, I was talking to Brittany this week, who's on our hospitality team. And that's enough. People just need to know. Or like when you quote somebody, like an author or a pastor or a theologian, say C.S. Lewis. Not everyone knows who C.S. Lewis is. C.S. Lewis, he's an author. He said this. Or he wrote Chronicles of Narnia. You might have heard of him. Or Tim Keller, someone I quote all the time. Tim Keller, who's a pastor and author in New York City. Like, just give a qualifier for who you're talking about, and also give context from your passages. Again, we've talked about this a lot. When you say open up to Matthew, say who Matthew is. Like, even if you're in a series on Matthew, say it every week. We're doing a series called Masterclass all year. We're going through 1 Corinthians. We're taking a few short breaks. Every week, I say, here is Paul. Here's who he is, and he wrote this book. Here's when he wrote it. because people just don't know. And when you tell people, when you give people context, they don't feel stupid. They're more likely to listen, and they're more likely to be like, oh, not everybody knows everything because they're explaining it.
Yeah, I think especially for myself, if you're in a position where maybe you haven't planted yet and you're at a place where you don't preach every week, it can be very easy to reference the pastor.
Yeah, even the pastor.
To reference the pastor, or have like an inside joke if you're a smaller church where people kind of know that, like, for example, here, Dylan is a big Duke fan. So it'd be very easy if I was up there preaching to reference Dylan, something with Duke, and give no qualifier. And someone, if that's their first time, they're like, hey, who's Dylan? Right. B, I don't care about Duke. Like, they don't know what we're talking about. But all of a sudden you have a bunch of people laughing and they're just thinking, I'm left out. I have no idea what's going on.
And the thing with that, there are going to be times where new people aren't going to get a joke or going to get something. Yeah. But at least saying who the person was makes them not feel like they don't belong.
Yeah, not like they missed the punchline. It's just, hey, it's my first time here. I understand I don't get this thing. Yeah.
So there was, again, 7 non-intrusive ways to welcome first-time guests. It's very important to do it, but if you do it awkwardly, they might not come back.
Yep.
So thanks for listening today. practicalplanting.com/questions. If you have a topic you want us to discuss in a future episode, and we'll see you next time on Practical Church Planting. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Practical Church Planting. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Practical Planting, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you like or subscribe or do whatever it's telling you to do or should do on that platform.
And hey, if you are so tired of looking at our ugly faces, but you're not tired of listening to our beautiful voices, then you can find our podcast if you just search Practical Church Planting on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure not to just find it, not just to listen, but to subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe. Brian, tell them to subscribe.
Subscribe.
See you next time.